Democrats are now in a world of pain over the election result, sexism, racism, anything but their own candidate. We've also heard that from Democrat commentators across the board, they've all used the same line that Kamala Harris ran a flawless campaign. Well, so flawless, it delivered Donald Trump. Let's bring in our Sky News host, Paul Murray, live in Washington. Paul, yep, it was certainly flawless from Trump's perspective. It's always fun watching the left-wing meltdowns to fair elections. The excuses for why Trump won are coming in thick and fast, and we've even started to hear leaks from Joe Biden's camp that he would have done better than Kamala.
See, this is why I love you. You know, we're on exactly the same page, because this is where the story goes, right? Which is about the tension of Biden and Harris. Now, so to explain the structure of the campaign, basically the entire machine that was there for Joe Biden, as soon as Kamala Harris became the candidate, all of that machine stayed in place. So obviously all of those people are loyal to Biden. So any attempts to have a strategy of throwing him under the bus, they were all going to resist it. But there was somebody who was put as the cherry on top for Kamala Harris. It was a man called David Plouffe. Now, David Plouffe is a former, the bloke who put together the 2008 and 2012 Obama victories. He's made an awful lot of money in the private sector and political advice since. And he sort of has sat back a little bit as kind of like, you know, the perfect coach of the perfect team, all the rest of it, and sort of has sat back, and he didn't get involved in Hillary. And for him to now be at the heart and soul of the Harris campaign, we now have the beginnings of the fight for the narrative. And it's the Obama camp versus the Biden camp versus the Harris camp. And when you were saying that all the reporters all said the same thing at the same time, guess what? We all know where they were getting their information, because, of course, they were all being spoon-fed all the way through this campaign, all being spoon-fed about 50-50, all being spoon-fed about, 10% of independents and late deciders, just garbage, right, that they knew that would be uncritically reported on the air. But, yeah, so Biden will officially speak today. He's obviously going to walk away when people start to ask questions. But pay attention, because the next couple of days we're going to start to really see that the campaign of joy was not behind the scenes.
No, 100%. And you could see it in Kamala Harris's face today. And obviously she's going to be disappointed, but it was beyond, it was shattered. You know, clearly such a shock. And again, we're seeing that in the leaks coming out to CNN reporters, just that shock that they didn't win. And you know what's so amazing is that there's this surprise that American voters actually cared about issues like inflation and immigration more than a fear campaign about Donald Trump's character. I mean, this is just a massive misunderstanding of regular families, isn't it, Paul?
Well, 100%. And also, it's a bit of an insight, and it can happen to politicians on all of the spectrum, but it is a particular feature of a certain type of politician that we have right now on the let's be polite and say centre left, but most likely further out to the left. It's what we see in and around the people around Albo, right? Which is never admit a mistake. Just never admit a mistake. Oh, but obviously, sir, you know, the building behind you is on fire. No, peaceful protests, right? This sort of Jedi mind trick stuff that they think that their incredible political science and all the rest of it means that they can somehow get you to believe, to not believe your eyes. And a perfect example of that was, say, let's go back to when Biden is clearly, you know, the computer ain't connected anymore, and you can start to see sort of, you know, those pupils getting bigger and bigger. Oh, that's a cheap fake. I mean, that's a made-up word. They literally made up words to distract from the reality of what was happening. And I think as well that part of the problem for Harris was, okay, let's imagine that you and I are in the same scenario. Okay, now you've been my vice president, and I'm turning around and clearly I can't do the job. But imagine that we've been friends for 4 years, so much so that you're the vice president. Well, I would say to you, look, mate, I get it. Do whatever you can. Throw me under the bus. I just want you to win. But clearly that conversation never took place, and I think that's because there was a very poor relationship between these two. Remember, 90+% of her staff walked out of her office. So, you know, again, when you lose, everything that anyone's ever said that's bad about you is true, and when you win, everyone's a genius and every little thing. But I think today's story is this peek behind the curtain at how chaotic things were. And surprise, surprise, the American voters could just see straight through it. They know they were being BS to, and they know that there was this performance of this happy-go-lucky person who, the second they got the worst possible news of losing an election, said to tens of thousands of people who turned up, bugger off, I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. And just the lack of substance. And really, I think Brett Baer was the biggest journalistic star of this campaign because he was the only person who did a proper interview. Paul, by the way, I loved your idea of us being president and VP. Can you imagine if we were in charge of the world? I'm actually glad we're not.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine that sound you can hear is the media writers at The Guardian's head exploding at the mere suggestion of it?
My number one thing would be helping Israel blow up Iran's nuclear site. So, yeah, everyone wants to keep me away from the White House.
Look at you already dreaming of having the button. It was a metaphor to tell a story, and you're playing out of it. Anyway, God love you. I will serve at the pleasure of the president, madam.
I think you were the president and I was your VP in that scenario. But anyway, Paul, you've got me.
But then I was too old and then you replaced me.
It's okay, exactly.
Anyway.
Paul, we're going to have more of your fun and sharp analysis at 9 o'clock tonight. Again, your coverage has been just sensational. No one can miss it. Paul, thank you very much. We'll see you at 9.
Thank you, Dylan.